السلام عليكم. شكرا لحضوركم. Thank you for coming and attending. We are pleased and pleasure to have Tony Megan, the founding director of Community Training Australia, in this session. Please welcome Tony Megan.
Hello, how are you? Have we got the slideshow up yet? There it is. Hello. It's lovely to be here. All right. So excuse my glasses, I'll need this to see my presentation. So the presentation I've prepared for today is towards a feminine model of education and industry, which is a bit of an unusual title, but we'll go through. So it is a great pleasure to be here at the beautiful United Arab Emirates, Fujairah. I'm honoured to be here at this significant time at the 10th Annual Education Conference. I've come with my wonderful personal assistant Julie and my esteemed colleague Nasir. So, as been mentioned, my name is Tony Megan. I'm the founding director and owner of a private college in Australia called Community Training Australia. Our college has 9 campuses around Australia with a number of satellite centres. As you know, Australia is at the other end of the world, but we took a direct flight from Brisbane to Dubai and it only took 14 hours, so it was on the Emirates airline, and so it's actually getting quite quick to connect to the world now, to be able to get across so quickly. My field of education is in educational psychology, and my specific area is in designing curriculum and education strategies to assist particular groups to excel in learning and develop skills for the workforce. So Australia is probably best known for our unusual native animals, but what you may not know is that we've also developed some extremely innovative medical technology, and we have a particularly well-developed vocational education system with a qualifications framework linking high school, vocational education and university studies. Australia is an old civilisation with a relatively young technological history, not unlike the United Arab Emirates. Like the UAE, Australia has also understood the importance of education in building a strong standard of living for its people. Our particular college in Australia specialises in providing human and community services as well as business management training programs. Our mission is to empower our students to make a significant difference in their world through enriching families and communities and through socialpreneurship, the practice of building business which benefits humanity. My presentation today will focus on a number of things. What's happened for women over the last 50 to 100 years, the importance of educating women in today's world, what we know about women and the female brain and men and the male brain, and current worldwide education and business models, describing what a feminine model of education might look like and how using this model for educating women might transform communities and nations. So as we're all very well aware, the traditional roles for men and women have changed in 1 to 2 generations, with a change in paid work from an activity which was highly physical to a non-physical and more brain-based activity. So what we do every day as human beings has changed dramatically on the planet in just 2 generations. 3D printers are only just the start. Machines have largely taken over many physical jobs, as we're aware, and they're saying that 3D printers will soon build whole houses. I'm amazed by this. I still don't understand how that works. So men and women can manage both roles of hunting and gathering, if you like, and in many ways women are more naturally adapted for a number of modern vocations. One of the first roles that women actually played in a workforce was in typing because of our extremely capable manual dexterity. We've also educated women, which is wonderful, and women are now performing a range of activities, taking them into leadership positions in society. But the cry now from most women is, how do I balance my life? We not only continue to nurture our families, but we now also study and work. And while it's exciting, it's also very tiring. So this whole topic of work, study and home life balance is one that we talk about a lot. It's now the focus for many women. How can we get that right balance? Many of us are in the same boat, trying to find the same answers around the world in balancing work, study, home and community work. Some nations and families try to hold on to the past in this regard, thinking a return to traditional roles is the way to bring balance. But the cat is out of the bag. Our world is changing, and it's not going to reduce its complexity, it's going to become even more complex. And finding how to manage this for men and women is one of the largest social realities that we'll have to deal with. In some countries and families, there's a silent war going on between men and women. Women and men are stressed in managing the changes in their roles worldwide, and conflict is occurring. While some manage this stress better than others, often women are left with a huge load as they're apt to make peace and resign themselves to coping with traditional roles plus work and study. In Australia, we even have in our own company 2 specific courses that deal with conflict in relationships. One is in relationship counselling and the other is family dispute resolution. So in Australia, these issues are becoming epidemic in our society. But if you bear with me, I think I have a possible solution. The answer is not for women just to do more. It is a total conceptual change that has to occur in education and industry for the right balance to occur. Our men will also need to recognise the need for this change so that conflicts between our sexes lessen and we provide due care and respect for our women who are often caught in this bind. As women, we want to succeed in our careers, but also succeed with our families, our studies and our community involvement. I have a couple of wonderful quotes here that I found that I thought people would be very familiar with, but I was very impressed with these. The first one, well, there's 2 quotes here. Education is a country's single most important priority, and investing in the educational development of the individual represents the only real investment. And the second quote, the prosperity that we have witnessed has taught us to build our country with education and knowledge and nurture generations of educated men and women. And another wonderful quote, education is a true measure of the progress made by states to attain success and excellence in the field of investment in human capital, including women. An educated human, man or woman, is the basis of civilisation and the axis of advancement and progress. So there's no doubt that the UAE has taken this call for women to have education. The wonderful quotes that we've just heard are now fully endorsed by research. From Cairo to Beijing, offering quality and universal education to women promotes progress for society as a whole. Carla Koppel of the United States Agency for International Development, better known as USAID, even called female education a silver bullet for empowerment and progress. The gross domestic product, better known as GDP, soars when both girls and boys are offered educational opportunities. When 10% more women attend school, GDP increases by 3% on average, and this is what's been found around the world. The fact that the leaders of the UAE have recognised this secret has allowed women to take their place in politics, in business, in education, in community, and contribute powerfully to the well-being of this nation. The UAE has understood the important blend of compassion and strength which is provided when both men and women contribute their particular and unique gifts. I found it was quite wonderful to actually fly over the UAE because what I saw was design which was just extraordinary. It's not rigid and blocky, but arranged in curves like flowers and plants. For me as a woman, it's extremely appealing and delightful. Women engineers are showing their skills here, and the UAE is leading the world in beautifully designed human habitation. The field of epigenetics has opened up to us the question of set brain structures and capacities. Our capacity for even brain structures and processes to change is now recognised as human beings, and maybe over the next 100 years we'll see some adaptive changes in the human brain. But I will now share some differences between men and women's brains. But I must stress that this information is general and individuals don't always neatly fit into the box. I am, for an example, a highly empathetic woman, but for whatever reason, God has also made me a structural thinker as well. So I can run a large organisation with 150 workers and 1,500 students while being a wife, a mother and a community service worker. So what do we know about women? There's a large emphasis around the world to equate women and men in an effort to promote the value of women. But it's problematic, as we know that every cell in a female body is different to the cells in a male body. Women are not men in a woman's body. We are distinctly different. We know that we look different. We know that we act differently. Our brain structure and functioning is different as a general rule as well. So there's a lot of differences, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of those because I find them quite fascinating, and it gives us a bit of a clue about how we maybe need to develop education and also industry in order to see women really cope with the world that we've actually created. So we're all pretty much aware that we have an equality in intelligence, but we have difference in capacities and functioning. So the corpus callosum in the brain is a central part of the brain joining the right and left hemispheres. While the female brain is smaller overall by 10%, the corpus callosum is thicker in the female. The change in brain formation occurs at 26 weeks of gestation, so while the baby's in the womb. So it's not dependent on environmental factors. This allows women to multitask, combining activities and thinking on various levels at once. Men see individual issues with parts of their brain, while women look at the holistic or multiple issues with the whole brain. Male brains utilise nearly 7 times more grey matter, while female brains utilise nearly 10 times more white matter. So what does that mean? Grey matter areas of the brain are localised. They're information and action processing centres in specific areas of the brain. This can translate to a kind of tunnel vision when men are doing something. Once they're deeply engaged in a task or game, they may not demonstrate much sensitivity to other people or their surroundings. They get completely engrossed. White matter is the networking grid that connects the brain's grey matter and other processing centres with one another. You may have noticed that girls tend to more quickly transition between tasks than boys do. The grey-white matter difference may explain why in adulthood, females are great multitaskers while men excel highly task-focused projects. So a woman can literally cook the dinner, help the kids with the homework, plan a presentation for work, feed the baby and plan the wardrobe for the whole family for the next day, and a man can do one job at a time well, and probably resents being asked to do 2 or more things at once. However, the fact that men focus strongly on one thing at a time means they're not as distractible as women. This was probably an important factor in human beings being able to protect themselves in a time gone by. They're able to focus on danger without distraction. We still appreciate this capacity in men. Men tend to have a structuralist capacity, allowing them to plan the big picture and work in technical ways. Women tend to have an empathising capacity, allowing them to work in intuitive ways, picking up sensory information. But it's always important to note that it's not always the case. There's always outliers in these sort of studies. While we do have men who are empathetic and women who can think in a structural way and plan things and see the overview, on the whole, research demonstrates that women gravitate to work roles that involve people support and men gravitate to work roles that involve technical and planning work and demonstrate capacities in this respect as well. So in women, there's increased blood flow to the limbic system in the brain, which is associated with empathy and a friendly response. These differences don't indicate intelligence, but differences in thinking, and both skills are necessary in every part of business and industry. As children, girls tend to demonstrate more nurturing play, while boys tend to demonstrate more physical, aggressive activity. Male and female brains process the same neurochemicals, but to different degrees through gender-specific body-brain connections. Males on average tend to be less inclined to sit still for long as females and tend to be more physically impulsive and aggressive. Females process more of the bonding chemical oxytocin. So we've got a picture here of fellas kicking a ball and ladies having a cup of tea together. And it's a bit of a stereotype in some senses, but when men are stressed, in order to release stress, they'll typically need to use their bodies to release the stress, whereas women will want to get together and actually have a cup of coffee or a tea or and get into a huddle with another woman in order to release stress. So it's completely different ways that we actually need to release stress. Some more differences. The top brain is the top of a male brain and the bottom figure is of a female brain, and you can see this represents the speech centres and the activation. And you can see clearly there's much more developed language capacity for women. In the male brain, the connections go from across the lobe this way and may account for better skills, motor skills, and for females, the connections go more across the top of the two lobes of the brain, which accounts for better verbal and intuitive skills. So you can see that there's much more of the wiring that's gone on up here that we now know from science that actually explains the differences in the way we actually function. I have a question for you, for the ladies in the audience. Which design do you favour? Which one do you like more? Which one? You like the one that's more geometrical? You like the lines one? Okay. And so for other ladies? The flowery one? So we have a lot of girls here that like the geometric one. Are you engineers? No, that's why. Yes. So that's not surprising, because there will be some people here, particularly women that are really interested in the science fields, that will actually have more of a development towards structural interest, and they'll favour that kind of design. And you'll have other women that are much more humanities focused, people focused, that will favour more of the flowery design, if you like. So as I said before, there are differences and there's outliers. So we're not trying to put anybody in a box here, but these are just general trends that have been found. So research shows that gender has a significant impact on design. It affects not only how you draw or paint, but what you buy. What men and women create visually is often poles apart in terms of colour, shape and theme. Here we have the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. They're invited to sit back to back at adjoining easels. William painted an abstract shape, while Kate focused her energies on bright red circle and enveloped by three others and so forth. And it had tufts of grass and a natural effect. Another example, women in rural communities in southern Hunan, China, having been denied an education, they created their own script called Nushu, all curves and fluid shapes. And it's nothing like the square-shaped modern Chinese Hanzi script used by men. There are rigorous studies showing that while men and boys tend to use straight lines, few colours and little embellishment, women and girls produce rounded shapes, lots of colour and display attention to detail. On top of that, the many experiments showed a tendency for men and women to prefer designs created by their own gender. So is it something that's been taught is a really big question. We wonder whether this is just gender stereotypes or whether this is something different. Men, it seems, have better spatial rotation skills and targeting accuracy served by having eyes spaced 5 millimetres further apart than women, while up to 50% of women have a fourth colour pigment to men's 3, giving them access to hundreds of millions of more colours. What's more, about 8% of men are colourblind compared to 0.5% of women. They also have weaker object location memory. Men's skills are brilliantly adapted to hunting, since 3D vision, taken with colour blindness, which helps see-through camouflage, guarantee accurate targeting. Women in ancient times needed superb colour and close-up detail vision for the task of discerning edible berries. It sounds very simplistic, but it's there in our DNA. Did you know that when men walk together in a group that they speed up and walk faster than what they would on their own? And did you know that women will slow down to the slowest speed that one of them is walking? This has been a recent study just this year. What it tells us is this, that men enjoy competition quite naturally and women enjoy nurturing quite naturally. Interestingly, men slow down for women that they have a close relationship with. So women help stop the super competitive nature of men. The story here is that we need strength, competition, speed in creating a great planet, as well as nurture, community cohesion, kindness and love, bringing everyone on the journey. We need the contribution of men as well as women, is the story. In most developing nations, we have a mix of both modern and antiquated systems in both education and industry. Changes happen so rapidly for us due to the explosion of technology that we haven't had time to consider what we need in both of these systems and how they might interact in the most efficient ways. So we in Australia committed to lifelong education, as I know you are here in the UAE, but we don't quite know how to change our systems to manage this. When we think about history and where education and enterprise was focused, we can clearly identify it was primarily available for men and designed by men to work in a world ruled by men. So we know certain things about men, and of course women admire these qualities and the planet needs those. Men are brilliant at organising large projects and structures. Our businesses are developed on hierarchies and our education system provides a climbing frame for progression. The straight lines get us between 2 points the fastest. I recently asked an architect to create a design for an education building for me. They created the same sort of education building that I see everywhere in town. Lines are straight, rooms are square, the space is functional. When I talked to them about rounded designs, they said it costs more. So education and business environments are often very functional. Men also enjoy working on one job at a time. In education, we have faculties that are siloed. In universities, we find faculties don't talk to each other and share knowledge. In business, we have tasks and departments. The engineers link the activities so that production can occur. And rather than talk about it, men will move into action, creating pathways as individuals and passing on instructions to others. I still remember as a child writing out lines, "I must not talk in class," and you might remember that as well. We were very much encouraged not to talk, but of course that's how women will learn and grow, is actually through lots of discussion, because those speech centres are very highly developed. Competition certainly contributes to greatness, but in education it doesn't seem to matter what you've learned or how you apply it, but that you get a higher mark than your peer. My son is studying medicine, but they'll always fail the last 3 people in the year and move pass marks up and down, so that some people will always fail despite what they learn. In industry and between nations, winning comes at a great cost to us because it means that some lose. We're a small world, and in the end we all lose when someone else does. So in bringing women into education 50, 100 years ago, we have lined people up a bit like soldiers and ensure we don't cheat by any collaboration. And when women began to move into the workforce, we found that they were put in straight rows, not able to talk, and were performing single function roles. So in other words, we haven't fully understood what we've done in moving women from traditional roles into the workforce and education. We've not designed industry or education for women. Women are fitting into a male paradigm, not realising it. And this is actually causing the greatest stress, this significant change for women. So what does a feminine model of education look like? It feels very different from traditional education. Traditional education was built for men, and we haven't changed it much, although we're now recognising how important it is to educate women. But if we don't educate our women in a style that will enhance their success, we may leave half of our nation's resources untapped, which makes no sense at all. This is for any nation in the world. For the women who have succeeded, they've achieved an amazing thing. They've swum against a current and demonstrated an extraordinary spirit. They say it takes two wings to fly, and by recognising the strength that comes to a nation from both the men and women realising their full potential, as God intended it, are played off. So in catering for women, we need to consider what it is women need in education and business. And it's certainly not about just having private washrooms. It's about understanding what motivates and enhances women's wellbeing and success. So I know that we've come to, this is taking a little bit longer and I don't want to keep you here for a long time, but I guess we're saying simply, let's take out some new lenses on education and business environments and ask ourselves the questions. If we left a woman to invent and create those environments, what would it look like? And I'm just going to click through a little bit. So this is an example of a workplace that's been designed and an education facility that's been designed by a woman. So it's full of colour and design, and it's a harmonious kind of a feel. Learning resources may be a little bit different too, with again lots of colour and humour and so forth. Bright colours in business resources might be something that women may really enjoy. Words that actually have meaning, that encourage some of that connection between people. In our own institution, we have dress-up days once a month, and our students and staff really enjoy being playful with those kind of activities. And it might seem like nothing is getting done, maybe, by doing those things, but in fact it actually produces a very powerful work team. So education for the future needs to train students to be flexible and innovative. The world is changing and changing quickly, and women are by nature flexible and capable of managing the new world of multitasking and have the gifts to bring the world into harmony if we support them in the right way. These are some of our team in our own institution, and you can see we've mostly got women. As a female owner and director, I had no formal background in management except for bringing up my family of 5 children. I'm a psychologist by trade and a manager by default. But we've built our organisation without knowing it on a feminine model. We've developed our education programs primarily for females. What we've found is that we actually have a 40% higher graduate rate in our institution than for similar levels around the country. We have 83% women in our institution, but what we're finding is that we're outstripping the national average in our results. And I think a lot of it has to do with actually recognising who we're actually educating and who we're looking after, and being able to cater for those individual differences, those specific differences. And again, we're not saying that everybody neatly fits into a box. It just doesn't happen like that. We're all very different as human beings, every single one of us. But on the whole, some of these brain differences that we've seen actually show us a little bit more about how we might actually create environments that might enhance people's growth and women being able to succeed. And similarly in business environments, one of the things that we have got the capacity these days is by having a very flexible workplace, by actually using technology for people to connect. Instead of people having to be there from 9 till 5 or in set rigid patterns, we can communicate with Skype, and we can have shared calendars, we can be project managing with project management tools and all sorts of things by the internet with cloud-based solutions. So this means a great deal for women that might have to get home to their kids or be there for a sick relative, or being able to do all those kind of things that they may be trapped into being in more of a traditional workplace. So there's so many more tools out there that can create the flexibility, and it doesn't mean that productivity has to be decreased in any way at all. But it does give that freedom for women that have got this capacity and need to be able to look after families and look after their relatives and their neighbours and and to be able to study and work and all of the things that we ask of ourselves as women, to be able to have a more creative opportunity in our business and our education environments will make a huge difference. So I guess in conclusion it might seem like a tall order, but if education for women is the silver bullet, let's make that education count for women by feminising it and continuing that into our industries. In getting ready for the 2020 Expo here in the UAE, the title is Connecting Minds and Creating the Future. I believe that the UAE has much to offer the world, but communication is key. We'd love to be able to help. We can help through intensive English training and opportunities to share knowledge and increase, so Emirati people can both share their knowledge and learn more to help increase the well-being and prosperity of the UAE and worldwide. And also showcasing Emirati women's success, Emirati women in particular growing their capacity to create something new, something not seen before through new experiences. We have education programs around 6 weeks in Australia that we can provide, which can give people the incredible opportunity for soft skills development, plus practicing English language skills, which is going to help communicate something of what's here into the larger world. Just finishing with a couple of pictures of some of our campus locations. This is our farm stay location, which is a residential campus. You can see it's very feminine because we cater mostly for women. And down in Tasmania, which is in the south of our country. We have some lovely gardens and so forth. We also have some great training for industry in key areas of leadership and management, youth work, counselling skills, community services, with Australian study tours and overseas humanitarian study tours. So I think we've come to the end of my time here, and I hope that that's been of some interest anyway, and something that I'm quite fascinated by. And please forgive me, I'm not trying to put anybody into a box. I'm not trying to offend any woman here that has, some really highly developed capacities which would typically be seen as non-traditional, and or our gentlemen that may have highly empathetic capacity. But it's some of the stuff that we're finding in those key differences between men and women. And I just think that it'd be great to actually see our education and our industry actually cater more fully for all that a female is, all that we can contribute, all that we can give into a community. And I think that can make a really big difference for the stress that we all find in trying to manage the complex world that we're in and the multiple roles that we're having to cope with as females. So thanks very much everybody for your time, and I appreciate coming. Thank you.
بسم الله بسم الله.
وين عيل شو اسمه؟
بسم الله بسم الله.
لدعم التعليم والموارد البشرية، بالإضافة إلى أفضل ممارسات الابتكار في التعليم والموارد البشرية، ومن ثم نتطرق إلى التميز في التعليم الذكي. للحديث في هذا الموضوع معنا بعض